Hello. On Saturday, the 31st of October, we have our full moon in the sign of Taurus. Now, this is our second full moon of the month, and it's definitely our more charged full moon of the month. I would say that it is the most charged full moon of the year so far, without doubt. This is the full moon that we've been building up to. It's almost like every full moon has been a little stepping stone on the next, on the next, on the next. And this full moon is very, very charged. It's kind of riddled with energy and wildness, release, and kind of a death in a way, more of a symbolic death, I would imagine. Now, the full moon falls on Samhain, otherwise known as Halloween. And Samhain is a pagan and Celtic festival which follows the wheel of the year. And according to pagan and Celtic tradition, Samhain was the last day of the year. It was New Year's Eve. It was when the veil between this life and the next life, or the next lives, were the thinnest. So it was very frequent for people to experience like spirit visitations or feel very connected to their ancestors. But more importantly, to exercise like very concise rituals in connection to gathering and burying. It's a real process of not just letting go, but saying goodbye. In my last video, a few videos ago, about the autumn equinox, Mabon is at the beginning of September, and it's when the leaves begin to fall. So it's like we can see that things are ending. It's like we can see a relationship is fraying. We can see that something is starting to leave our lives. We can see our beliefs are changing. We can see that our work is changing. And that's kind of what happens September through to October. And then we get to Samhain. And at Samhain, it's time to say goodbye. It can be quite a confronting time. That's why it falls in Scorpio season. It's this period of non-attachment where we aim to die to who we were. Traditionally, people would die to who they were. It feels as though this Scorpio season, and with Mercury retrograde and with this funny cluster in Capricorn, that we are being asked to explore this space in between. Like, where do we go when we die? Where were we before we were born? This darkness either side is where we're taken, specifically at Samhain, specifically now at this full moon. It's very strong cave energy. It's this space of the cave, this inwards and coiling into a space of depth. It's where the hermit retreats. It's where you go when you don't know. It's this kind of space of infinite darkness. And we're given this sort of astrological slither into this kind of feeling at Samhain on Saturday the 31st. I was thinking that if we were going to brand this full moon as an archetype, it would be the archetype of the wise woman. What space does the wise woman move from? How does someone become wise? What is wisdom, right? There's a lot of questions when it comes to wisdom, but when you meet somebody wise, you kind of undoubtedly know that they're wise. A key theme this weekend, and definitely into Scorpio season in November, is cultivating your own sense, your own understanding of your wisdom. Like, where are you wise? In what area are you very wise? Where are you naturally wise? Where are you experientially wise? Your wisdom is needed. It's really needed up until the end of the year. Astrologically, there is a lot of red flags this full moon. The sun and the moon are opposite each other, of course, at 8 degrees. And the moon is directly conjunct Uranus at 8 degrees. This is just silly. This is just so uncomfortable. It is silly. Our moon is our deepest, most vulnerable. Our moon is our cave space. So if we see Samhain as we're being told to enter the cave, enter the womb, enter that space where we feel completely safe because we're so vulnerable there. If you look to your moon sign in your chart, it's where you're really soft, in fact. Not everybody sees your moon sign. Take the softest point in your chart, the deepest connection you have to your mother, where you need the most, where you're the most tender. and you place it right next to the part of your chart, the transpersonal planet, which creates chaos, creates electricity, creates lightning, creates significant and quick and impulsive change. I think that we need to be really aware this weekend of the potential for our vulnerability, the potential for our softness, and the potential for our tenderness to be challenged. I looked at the Sabian symbol for 8 degrees of Taurus, which is what this full moon is in, and I've got it right here below me. The Sabian symbol is a sleigh without snow. The importance of anticipating what inevitable changes are coming, a major process of letting go. Now, that resonates very, very deeply for me. It resonates deeply for all of us at this time, that there is this intrinsic shadow to Samhain where if we don't let go, it may be taken from us. And that is what Uranus conjunct the moon is suggestive of. Sharp, impulsive, external changes, threats to security, threats to your home life, re-remembering childhood experiences, having a difficult exchange with your mother, or some information coming through from your mother line. But there's a challenge to that softness, there's a challenge to that sense of security and safety, even just a re-remembering of your childhood wounds. Anything can happen. Now, we also have another perfectly opposite, very, very sharp aspect, which is Venus in Libra, opposite Chiron in Aries. With this, we have to be aware. It's what's going to come up, I think. Everything is still so relational, but kind of Scorpio and deep and kind of uncomfortable, that this weekend, what it feels like is going to come into a greater sense of awareness is the impact of our childhood, the impact of our childhood conditioning, and how it affects our capacity for safe love. Safety, security, belonging, rooting, digesting, all feel like themes which are really going to be challenged. But of course this makes sense anyway, because if Samhain is about dying, about letting go to who we were, we have to challenge everything that we know in order to become who it is that we are going to be. So it's very confronting, it's not easy. Now, just another harsh aspect, because I'll just list them all, that's what I'm here for, is Saturn perfectly square Mercury retrograde at 26 degrees. That is just ridiculous. If the moon conjunct Uranus was, uncomfortable, this is just ridiculous. Now, Saturn, as we know, is about restriction, contraction, limitation. If Jupiter is where you expand and you blossom and you birth yourself in bliss and luxury, then Saturn is where you contract and you're cold and kind of scared and resentful. So when we have a square, we have two planets which are at 90 degrees, so they're in a conflict, they're at an edge, they're not meeting well. When we have restriction, contraction, limitation meeting our kind of warped sense of curiosity, which isn't quite landing well, it just suggests to me that it's like further restrictions being implemented. More primarily, not just physical restrictions, but restrictions limited and kind of placed upon our curiosity. I was doing some research earlier about vaccinations, and this vaccination, I've noticed even just online, the division that this vaccination is creating between people who have no issue and would have a vaccination because they think that that's good, and then people who are like, no way in hell am I getting a vaccination. I was looking at a documentary called Vaxxed, which was made I think in 2015, and it was submitted for Tribeca Film Festival and it got cut. It created too much controversy. And then in July it was taken off Apple and taken off Netflix. And it's so interesting, this debate, this limitation on curiosity. It just feels like more shadow bans, more material disappearing. Like there's not this sort of option to explore the wideness of the narrative. There's a shutter being placed, Saturn square Mercury retrograde. there's a shutter there. Now, something else that I've been thinking about is, obviously everybody's feeling Mercury retrograde. It's now gone back so far that it's in Libra, so it's back to relational. Before it was in Scorpio, so it was about like digging and bringing up our own inner gunk and our own inner muck and dreams and Freudian feelings and desire and abandonment and jealousy and all these very primal, very real experiences that live in us. With it moving back to Libra, there's great potential for all of those feelings to be then projected on everybody around us. You know, like we've become aware of how we feel, and you know, Libra is all about relationships, so perfect. Who the hell can I blame for these horrible feelings that I'm like riddled with? Now, I was thinking about this and how it applies to the US election. Of course, Mercury, if we were going to look at a planet for voting, it would be Mercury, because it's how we talk, how we share our intellect, it's writing, it's expression, it's speech. Now, the US election, in a way, controls the world. Any executive decisions affecting trade or climate change, it affects all of us in some way. Even restrictions affect all of us in some way. Saturn perfectly square Mercury retrograde is not the best basis for, it feels like a worldwide election to take place. Now, funnily enough, a Mercury retrograde ends the day before the US election, so the polls can be counted and everything sort of falls into more alignment, I suppose. But something that I will leave you on, and I think is important to think about, is astrology can be seen as super woo-woo. I know that when I tell people I do astrology, they're like, okay. Well, some people, you know. But the royals have astrologers. The royals have openly expressed, openly admitted, but you know, spoken about that they have astrologers to make decisions, to oversee decisions. The royals make decisions, make plans, execute plans and trades based upon what's happening above them in the cosmos. It's not that far out. And if the royals do it, then the politicians do it. And if the politicians do it, then very high business people do it. Governments and people in power, they align with higher forces at play in order to utilize the energies, manipulate the energies in the most favorable way to them. So I just think that if they can do it, then so can we. And we should have this knowledge too, because it's very useful. It's very useful in making moves. If you want to know what's going to happen, you know, in 5 years' time, we want to know what's going to happen in a country, in the politics, look to the astrology. It is often, more than often, very, very right. But back to a personal level, just finishing it on a personal level. This weekend, the kind of heading would be to say goodbye and to bury. We are winding down now. We are coiling up and we are winding down into the cave, inwards, 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 until Yule, until winter solstice, until December the 21st. That is when things are going to start up again. That's when the sparks are going to start to fly. But at the moment, the best thing that you can do for yourself is to bury, to see what has fallen. There's nothing to cut now. What's got to go has already dropped. So like rake up your yard and begin to bury with gratitude, but with intention. Well, I'm going to do a little post tomorrow with some Samhain ritual ideas. So if you want to celebrate Samhain but you don't really know what you would like to do, you can check it out. There's a few different kind of burial rituals there for your entertainment. I hope that you have a interesting full moon, and you can say goodbye and you can let go to what needs to go. All the best. Lots of love.